I'm Modern Synthesist, otherwise known as Mr. Pink, and welcome to another episode of Xenos Alchemist, the podcast that me and my brother do from time to time. And today we're joined by a very special guest, GrimNGribbly, you may know him from Instagram, also known as Alistair. Alistair joins us today to kind of have a conversation about the new reveals for the orc line, because orcs are something that are very close to his heart. And also we're going to be going into kind of a deeper interview with him and about his hobby and what he's into. So if you're familiar with his work, maybe you'll learn a little more about it today. If you're not familiar with his work, you should absolutely follow him on Instagram, and you'll be very keen to do that after this conversation. So just to confirm, his handle is Grim, Grim, letter N, and then Gribbly. So GrimNGribbly, and Gribbly is spelled Gribbly. So Alistair, thank you so much for joining me today.
No worries. It's nice to finally be on.
Yeah. I'm sorry we haven't done it sooner. I feel like I constantly come to you with like, hey, Alistair, I've got this really cool idea for a podcast episode, and I want to do it with you. And you're like, no problem, anytime. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, this is like the third or fourth different thing that we've been pitched, I think.
Yeah. And it's always my fault. You're always like, no problem. We'll do it anytime. I'm like, yeah, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So I'm glad we're actually doing it. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, the thing that kicked me in the ass and made sure that we're actually doing this now is last week's reveals. We're recording this just after Warhammer Fest has wrapped, and I believe that as Xenos people, we were very lucky at Warhammer Fest this week because we got something that Xenos people have been waiting for a long time, which is new orcs.
Some small amount of attention, yeah.
Thank God. For me, this felt like it had to be in the offing soon, just because what we saw with the Necrons mid to late last year, and like the awesome treatment that they got, it kind of reassured me that Games Workshop does care about Xenos armies. They're going to get to them, and when they get to them, they're going to do them properly, because that's kind of what happened for me with Necrons. So they gave it like the proper shake that it needed. And for me, I feel like the two armies that are tied that need Games Workshop refresh treatment the most are Craftworld Eldar and Orks. So I was certainly really happy to see this. How did you feel when you saw those? Was it the beast Snaggas that we saw first? These dudes on the pigs?
The sort of more savage orcs than we're used to seeing in 40k anyway, because of course we've had savage orcs in AOS for a good long while.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see them get official representation in 40k too, because they've always been so cool. But it's always been about sort of you convert them yourself, mix in fancy bits if you really want to do it. So I guess it's nice to see them explored in the context of 40k. Yeah, like those new Squig Riders, and well, I'm just curious what else they're going to be revealing. To be honest, it's going to be really cool to see that side of orcs, because we don't really see that.
Yeah, so like the first ones we saw were these Squig Riders, and how did you feel about the Squig Riders when they first came out?
Yeah, the pig noses.
Wait, Squigs? Do Squigs have pig noses? No, they don't, do they?
Generally not, no. Well, what they're clearly doing is they're going for they're sort of revamping boar boys, I guess, because I say back in the day, this is before I was born,
dude,
but
I
orcs
say back
used
in
to
the
have
day all the time. Don't worry about it.
Back in the day, 10 years before I got into the hobby.
Yeah.
So orcs had, they had boar riders, and they had cyborgs, and they had, basically it was just a straight port from Warhammer Fantasy into 40k.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see a 40k version of that old concept, I guess.
They did have boars in 40k though, right? But it was just like straight.
They did have boars, yeah. They had cyborgs.
Yeah.
And the models were basically metal heads that you stuck onto classic fantasy plastic boars.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so straight port, like couldn't be any straighter.
Yeah, so this is a bit different. This is a brand new beastie, but it fits in with the aesthetic quite well, which I like. It's nice to see something sort of mid-range in size as well, because the thing that I've always found irritating really about orcs in 40k is that in fantasy they've got so many monsters, so many beasties that they associate with, because you've got the squigs and you've got trolls and you've got all sorts, and in 40k that just doesn't exist.
So in 40k there's like a little bit of squigs, right? But there's never been like a big squig presence?
There's Not really, no. I mean, they've been in the fluff forever,
Mhm.
so I've always found it really strange that they just don't exist on the tabletop. I mean, that's why for a long time, one of my big projects has been bringing like the monsters from fantasy into 40k. So I've been doing like my space trolls for a good long while,
Yes.
and I've been doing like squig proxies for various vehicles. Like I did a teleporting squig a
Oh
while
god, that
ago.
thing's amazing. We got to we're
Yeah,
definitely going to
I'll
touch on
squiggo.
that in the later part of the interview where we talk more about your work, but I love that teleporting squig. Okay, so like I feel like them bringing squigs more into 40k is very much up your alley. So how do you feel about this port of squigs to 40k so far from
I'm
what you've
very
seen?
happy about it. I'm
Yeah.
very happy about it. Yeah, I'm hoping that we see even more, but it's definitely a direction that I'm pleased to see Games Workshop going in.
Awesome. And what about the like the orcs themselves? So the first glimpse that we got of these new orcs were the squig hound, I think are they called squig hound riders? Something like that.
Yeah,
Um and so we first got them, but then of course we got kind of like a redesigned orc on top, redesigned grot on there. But then the next preview that we got was one of the kind of like foot slogging uh
yeah.
god, what are they called? They're called beast snaggas. So one of the foot
Be Snagga boys. Yeah.
yes, so one of the foot slogging beast snagga boys. So what do you think about this guy? I've just pulled him up on the screen here. He's the first one they previewed. So he's, for anyone following at home on an audio format, we're talking about the it was kind of the second or third new orc they previewed. He's got like a oh god, I is it a shooter? I'm terrible at this.
It's a pistol, so it'd be a slugger.
Slugger.
Yeah.
He's got a slugger, and he's got a is it a chopper? Is it a chain
Yeah,
chopper?
it's just a chopper. Anything's a chopper.
Okay, so to be
It's all
clear,
very
I
generic.
love Xenos armies, but like for some reason, orcs are the one Xenos army I've never really gotten into. That's why I'm really glad you're here to talk about them because I feel like you have much more experience than me. Yeah, so this is just like a foot slogging one. He's got like a kind of dragon beast pelt on his back with some serrated spikes on it. Yeah, what do you think about these guys?
Um, I'm a big fan actually. I really like the so they've updated the anatomy a little bit, of course.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I was hoping that they would do that because orcs are in this sort of they're in this sort of weird phase right now where we have lots of really old sculpts
Mm-hmm.
mixed in with new ones, and you can see it especially if you compare, like, for example, the crew of the new vehicles
Yeah.
to the regular plastic boys.
I pulled up the
Um,
boy. Oh no, wait, sorry, I've lost it. I had a boy here.
yeah, with the stick bombs, didn't you?
Yeah, so I've got a boy here, and so I think one of the reasons I'm not really into orcs is if you 360 around this boy a bit, and you take a look at
Oh,
him from the
the
side,
butt sticking out.
the weird butt sticking out. He's got like a
Yeah.
C shape to his body, like a C
Mm.
pointing like a reversed C, where he got
Classic
his
orcs all
shoulders.
just have scoliosis, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, like orcoid scoliosis. So the unfortunate, well, the one thing is that with the beast snagga boy, you don't get that side view. So I'm really hoping they corrected that and that they're more upright. So in the crew, those vehicle crews that you're talking about, are they more upright? Are they less of this like scoliosis look?
Yeah, they're a lot more upright. They are really nice sculpts. I really like they've updated the anatomy, and the proportions are a little bit different as well. So I'm really liking on these new boys that the heads are proportionally smaller
Right.
when compared to the bodies, because with the way the boys are and the size of the heads compared to the bodies, I've always found them to look quite sort of cartoony. I mean,
Oh,
Games
you're
Workshop
right.
just has that in general, that the heads, hands, and feet are just too big. It's more obvious on human miniatures, but you see it on orcs too. Whereas on this one, the head is proportionally a lot smaller,
Yes.
which I really like. I think it makes them look a lot more ape-like. It makes them look a lot more
Yes.
threatening.
Also, like I have this
Um,
thing where one of my pet peeves about Games Workshop is that they'll make something big and muscly, like a big chunky individual, like a model, a beast, something like that, and they'll be like, because it's so big, we need to give it giant armor, we need to give it giant weapons. And I feel like that reduces the size. It kind of like the giant scale of the weapons or whatever makes the big giant chunky thing look smaller. And I
yeah,
kind of have that now that you've mentioned the head size. I didn't notice that, but with the big cartoony heads on the old boys, I feel like it makes them look less muscular, but with the smaller head on the new boys, like I really, again, the musculature is better in general in the model, but I feel like I notice more, how big and muscular the orcs are, and that's what I would expect of orcs.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I mean, I do like the classic boys. I think the sculpts are really nice. The old sort of Brian Nelson style sculpts are great, but I'm really enjoying the updated sort of physiology of them, and as well that they've got more different shapes. Like, so you've got this new boy who's really, really muscular, but then if you look at the new character, Zodgrod Snagga, he's very clearly a lot skinnier.
I'm just gonna pull him up
which
here.
I really like.
Yeah. Oh man, I love this guy. Like when this guy, they did that preview. Yeah. So if you look at the arms on the beast Snagga, and then you go and take a look at the arms on what's his name, Zodgrod.
Zodgrod Snagga. I love that he's so much skinnier.
Yeah,
like he's got the excess skin around his elbow, and that his ribs are showing, and that he's clearly a different shape. He's a lot weedier.
Right. Oh man, that's really cool. I actually didn't notice that as much. The only thing for some reason I noticed on this model, I mentioned this on the stream this week, his left foot. Something about his left foot, like it just looks so cool and like alien to me. The one organic foot he has left, and I don't know that I've never seen a bare orc foot before, or maybe when I've seen a bare orc foot, it just looked like a human foot. But something about that foot, it speaks to me, and maybe it's because it's like thin and emaciated. But yeah, this guy's amazing. This guy could get me into orcs, honestly.
He is a really nice, but I'm definitely going to be getting a few and doing conversions with him because I'm just seeing a lot of potential with him. He looks like he's going to be fun.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to get to him in a second. So I'm just going to progress through. So we talked about the kind of like general Snagga boys. And then, I wanted to talk about this guy. So the what's he called? He's a Painboy?
Pain boss.
Boss. Thank you. Yes. So this was the one that was previewed this Monday, actually before, as part of the Here We Go features that they're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, this guy is just super cool. And like, I feel like this is something we talk about on stream or something like that a lot. He's got an open hand. Everyone's like, can I get an open hand, please? And he's got an open hand without a gun in it, without anything. I love that.
Yeah, they're so hard to find.
Yeah. And then people are like, hey, how do you sculpt hands? I'm like, don't sculpt hands. They're such a pain in the ass. Just go and steal a hand from something that has an open hand. Like, don't sculpt them. So I'm glad to see we're getting more.
Oh, speaking of the hands, my other favorite thing about him, and I only spotted this earlier, is if you like you can see in the reverse. I've always wondered, like, what does an orc, like he's got a power claw built onto his body, right? So what does he want to do when he wants to, what does he do when he wants to eat his dinner or scratch his arse or whatever? And if you look at his backpack, he's actually got a spare
the hand
left hand.
I didn't.
It's the left hand, so he can swap out his claw.
I didn't catch that. You know, when I looked at the back of the model, it's got like these like tanks and stuff on the back and like a generator or something. And I saw that hand in there and I didn't think about it. I was like, oh, you know, it must be just to like he's going to fix people up and he's going to slap it on another boy.
Yeah.
But that's a wicked observation. It's like, no, he can swap out his claw.
It's a left.
That is really cool. Oh man. Okay, yeah, so these models are just amazing. So what do you think about this guy in general?
Oh god, I love him. I'm so happy to see an updated, especially Painboy, that just doesn't look like crap. Because I'm not a particular fan of the existing plastic Painboy. I think mainly it's his face that turns me off.
I don't really remember what he looks like. I'm gonna try and bring him up in the background, but
go for it.
Keep going.
Yeah, I've built that particular plastic Painboy a couple of times, and every time I've swapped the head out because the face sculpt just completely
oh my god, I now
puts me off the whole model.
Is it the one with the crazy claw thing? Like, and he's just like smiling?
The massive hand with like the syringe fingers. The hand just looks completely disproportional, and
time.
the face sculpt is just
oh my god, he's having a great time. He's got like a weird little like peg leg thing.
Yeah.
This has got to be fine cast.
No, it's plastic.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that grot face looks really rough.
Yeah, with the teeth. It's just a dodgy sculpt.
Oh, wow. I don't understand how this got produced in plastic. Like, when I see, like, that dodgy grot face, it makes me think fine cast, but dang. Yes, this is, like...
plastic.
Oh, when you look at that and you look at this, like, worlds different.
Mm.
And then it's got all the like orc charm of like the weird. She's got a squig IV bag. It looks like, and I don't know what that other weird little yellow thing crammed on there is for, but
That is, see, that's another thing that I really like. Orcs have always had in their background, they use squigs for everything. So like one of the, what kit is it? It's the Mega Knobs. They have like a grot mechanic, and he's holding like a squig under his arm with a tube in its mouth
it's a
because
bellows,
that kind
right?
of squig it secretes oil. It's oil.
Okay.
It's an oil squig.
Yeah.
And that one on his banner pole, I think it's a buzzer squig, like the equivalent of a wasp or a bee, because that variety of squig also appears on one of the buggies, the one that fires squigs. So I'm really liking that they're representing different varieties, and they're bringing that more in.
Cool.
That's another example of them referring back to the old background, which I really 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 like, because it was just so much more characterful.
So speaking of referring to the old background, and it being characterful, I had not realized that this model is an update of an old model.
Yeah, it's a revamp of a classic, which makes me so happy.
Games Workshop is doing this a lot, and it scratches all my right places. Like, I love that they go back to their old lines. They find inspiration from like an old model. This was actually a Painboy. I didn't realize this was a Painboy, so I just pulled up the picture. It's a Bad Moon Painboy with bionic head and arm. And if you look at this model, it's a little tough to find, but if you search that, you might be able to find it. Also, we're putting this up on YouTube as well, so if you want to see it. But it's got basically the exact... Oh, no, let's get rid of that hideous bastard. It's got the exact same bucket head as this Painboy.
Yeah.
And, oh, man, that's so cool. And it's got the claw, and there's probably other things in here that I'm not realizing are direct ports of it, and that is so cool that they remember the history.
I love that little homage to I think it's 2nd edition, possibly 1st edition. It's years and years and years and years before I got into the hobby anyway, so I've discovered all this retroactively, but it's so nice to see them bringing the classic style back, but with a modern level of sculpt, I guess.
Yeah, and they've done this with other models, and I can't remember what they are right now, but there's been other models recently that they've done this for, and I'm always just super impressed.
It's just always really nice to see.
Yeah. I love this pain boss. Like, I just want to grab him, and I just want to, like, clip off some of the super orky bits and just make him into some kind of weird, grotesque rack, something or other. Because I think I could do it without too much work. And preserve that cool musculature, the cool, like, bionic legs. They don't look very Dark Eldar, but whatever. I don't care. He's just too cool. Yeah, so we saw him, and then like the next big thing was that on, first we had a Warhammer 40k preview on Tuesday of last week, which was like, hey, here's 2 sisters models, and everyone was like, what the hell? Give us the
that you've already seen.
Yeah, we knew no. It was like 10 sisters models we'd already seen and 2 new ones, and one of them was this little priest, and one of them was like, hey, here's that suit that we already showed you, but there's a character. She was pretty cool. But I think a lot of people were disappointed with the Tuesday reveal for Warhammer Fest, just because there wasn't much 40k in it, other than here, read some books. And then, but everyone knew orcs. I don't know. I think everyone knew orcs were coming. I knew orcs were coming. So I'm like, where are the orcs? Where are the orcs? Yeah. Fortunately, they split up the 40k thing onto 2 days, and the orcs showed up on the Friday one. And they...
Worth the wait.
Sorry, what was that?
Worth the wait.
I would say it was worth the wait. First of all, I just want to comment. I love these orc videos they've done. The like weird like scrawling.
On the artwork walls. And the cave paintings and
I think that's a really classy way to do it. The only problem I have is that when I was watching that video, because they show that video first and then they show you like what models they're revealing. In that video, I kept hearing these like really heavy stompy noises, and I was so convinced that there was going to be a Squigoth. Like I'm like, there's got to be a Squigoth. And then like there was stompy noises. I'm like, oh my god, it's a Squigoth. And then they didn't show a Squigoth, but whatever. So yeah, this is continuing on with the whole Beast Snagga Boys theme, and they've said that Beast Snagga Boys are something you can put into any clan. But they're kind of like their own division of orcs. And they gave us this wall of beautiful orcs.
Yeah, so this is why I'm interested to see more about them, really, because up until now, like orcs have their different clans, and each clan has a very sort of specific style, I guess, and way of operating. So it's really interesting to see them introducing something completely brand new. I'm curious to see how that's going to slot into the different clans, because they've specifically said that they would fit in best with the Snakebites, which is the sort of orc equivalent of
The Savage Orcs?
or the 40k equivalent of the Savage Orcs, yeah,
Yeah.
as a clan, as a tribe. But they've also said that the Beast Snaggas, this new faction, are not exclusively from the Snakebites. So I'm curious to see what impact that has on the clan culture, if they're going to do anything else with the clans that we've not seen yet.
Because
It'll be interesting to see if there's more of a sort of blending, I guess.
I'm familiar with like the clans on a high level, like because I got into 40k in second edition. I know the Goths because they were like the main orcs back in the day, and then
Yeah,
like,
they're the poster boys that Scouts Gold a lot.
yeah, and then there's the snake bites have always intrigued me because they're more savage, and then I can't say why I love blood axes. Are blood axes a clan or are they just like a unit?
They're a clan.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they're like the sneaky commando boys, right?
Not just the commando boys. They have. I think they've got the highest proportion of commandos.
Yeah.
And storm boys. The blood axes are the clan that's had the most contact with the Imperium. So they've absorbed the most Imperial culture. So they will use camouflage, for example, and they have a lot of looted Imperial equipment.
Yeah. Okay, that's so. See, I thought they were just commandos. I just love, for some reason I can't explain. I love orc commandos, and I'm really hoping they do some orc commandos as part of this release. Like, are the current commando models? Do you know if they're plastic or?
No, they are still metal, I think.
Good. That leads me to believe they might do them. That because I don't know.
Yeah.
I just love commandos.
Well, you say that, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? But like that's one of the reasons that the orc range is in such a weird spot, because we've still got models from Gorka Morka, like the official Deathcopter miniature. The sculptor's older than I am.
Oh.
Which is especially weird because they released a plastic one.
Yeah, for
in a starter set, but then they never made
Black
it available separately. It was really strange.
Oh man, okay, that I've got an axe that I grind regularly, and that's that. This is not the same because like Black Reach came out like 10 years ago, and they still don't have the Deathcopters out. But Games Workshop released Deathwatch Overkill, which is how they introduced the Gene Stealer cult fighting against the Deathwatch. And in Deathwatch Overkill, they had a new Patriarch, they had a new Magus, they had a new Primus, they had Neophytes, Acolytes, Aberrants, and then they had brand new Gene Stealer sculpts that took them more back towards like the second edition version of Gene Stealer.
Yeah, with the ribbed paneling on the back.
Yes. And those have never been released in the like almost 5 years since Overkill
It's
came
bizarre,
out.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. So I think they're probably holding them for like Gene Stealer cult release, but that's crazy that they have like an old Gorka Morka Deathcopter, and you can buy that, but you can't get the Deathcopters out of Black Reach. Isn't the Deathcopter not even in the Codex right now or something? I thought someone said.
I think it still is.
I don't know. I'm not really versed on
sure.
Tyranid codexes, so I don't know if you're really versed on orc codexes, but
I mean, I sort of am. If I'm doing a build, I'll give a sort of slight nod towards the rules, but mostly if I'm making something, it's just because I want it to look cool.
That's the best way to do it. That's what I think is the best approach.
Yeah.
So back to clans. So I'm familiar with those, and there's like the Bad Moons and like the Red Suns. But how restrictive are the clans in terms of rules? Like, do they fully like limit you to only these models and not other models? Because
well, they don't limit you at all. See, this is again, this is another thing that I really try and explore more in my builds. So orc culture, it's got several subdivisions. So it's got the clans, which is the Snakebites, Goths, Bad Moons, Evil Suns, Death Skulls, and then there's the breakaway faction, which is the Freebooters, which is a mixture of all the clans, but basically just orcs that didn't fit in. And then you've also got warbands, and warbands, as far as the story goes, will be a mixture of all the different clans together. So you might, for example, have an Evil Sun sort of vehicle contingent. The Evil Suns are like the speed addicted bikers, essentially, and then the foot sloggers might be Goths because they have the most boys. Squiggoths would probably be Snakebites. You don't really see that in official armies or any sort of official representation. It's always the entire army has a consistent, they're all black, they're all red, or they're all yellow. So I'm really trying, when I build my lot, I'm trying to have them as more of a mixture, I guess, because I think that just has so much more character.
It makes me think of the new Drakari Codex they just released, Dark Eldar, because Dark Eldar has a subdivision within their force where there's like Kabalite troops, which are like the normal Dark Eldar warriors, and they're the ones who have like the planes and all that kind of stuff. And then they have the witch cults, which are like witches, reavers, hellions.
Yeah.
And then they have the covens, which are the homunculus stuff, which is what I'm really into. And in the most recent codex, it used to be that like you had either a coven force, or you had a cabal force, or you had a cult force. And if you chose that, you only got benefits if everything was from that. But in the most recent Dark Eldar Codex, they released this thing called the Real Space Raid formation, which is like you are allowed to take 3 separate forces as part of your force. And as long as you have a leader from a cabal, a leader from a coven, and a leader from a cult, you can have like different, what are they called? They're not formations. They're like, whatever. I don't play. But the idea is that they're trying to encourage people to blend their army. They're trying to encourage people to use different factions within one army. And maybe there could be something cool like that for Orcs, where they give you a reward for taking a subset of your faction with like a boss from that area, and then like some units. Yeah. And then you can also have a boss from a different clan or force, and the units from that one.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool to see. I mean, Orcs, they've never been that restricted in terms of rules. It's more of a story thing, and I'm much more about the fluff than I am about the rules, because I haven't played in years, because I've just not been in one place for long enough. But
dude, I've been in one place for long enough. I still haven't played in years.
Yeah, for me, what always drives me when I'm doing a build is story. So if I'm building a character, I try and come up with, if not like a fully itemized backstory, then at least a rough idea of who he is, what clan he's from, because that drives how he's going to look and how he's going to behave.
Mm-hmm.
And Orc lists have never been restricted in terms of you took an Evil Sun's boss, you can only take bikers and vehicles. It's more, I guess it's more in what leeway you have towards conversions and being creative with what you want to build, I suppose. And how you paint things as well. Like Orcs are weirdly prescriptive in that sense. Like you pick one of the 6 clans, and then that's your color scheme. So your Orcs will be yellow, red, blue, brown, black, or
So this new force, the Snaggas, that it kind of cuts across those divisions.
Yeah, it seems to. It doesn't really fit into any one.
Like I'm trying to establish like a scheme on them, and like their armor is white, which I haven't really seen for Orcs before.
Yeah, that's new.
Which is neat. And I'm having trouble picking out any other colors in there, but yeah, it looks like it's like predominantly white color with red glyphs.
I think that was probably deliberate, so that they don't fit too much into one particular clan.
Yeah. Also, like you can't use red if you're like riding a squig, because it would just all blend in. Yeah. So at the preview, the Warhammer Fest preview, we saw a whole whack of Snagga boys, which is cool. There's like a Snagga knob in there, which they don't have a close-up picture of, which makes me sad, because he's got a cool kind of. It looks like he tried to make like the spine of a beast out of like metal on his back. We got a close-up of the like leader of the. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, with the bionic.
Yeah, what do they call him? Did they? Is he a knob? Oh, Snagga's. Yeah, so he's a knob.
Yeah,
but the weird thing
he'll
is
be a knob.
He's riding a squig. He's not riding a squig hog. Like it's got 2 legs. And that crazy head smashing plate.
And that really nice arm sculpt. I love that bionic.
Oh yeah, that is really nice. I didn't really take a look at that too close.
It's really cool.
I even like his gun. I mean, it's still huge, but
yeah, it's like Hellboy's Samaritan, isn't it? It's just a big old revolver. It's cool to see.
And then it looks like he's got like a chop pole or whatever behind him.
Yeah, holstered on his back.
Yeah. So, and I personally like his giant, big, beefy squig a little better than the squig hogs.
Yeah, I do too.
Because with the squig hogs, their legs just look a little short for me, but like they're pretty cool. But and then everyone freaked out about the little. Do they have it down here? The grot.
Oh, with a
bomb.
unicycle.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was apparently Warhammer Fest. There was like 3 winners, and one of them was the crab, and one of them was the grot, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Yeah, we have 2 unicycling grots now, don't we? Because we got this one,
Yep.
riding the squig, which is a unicycle squig, and there's also the guy that comes with the pain boss, who has the same implant.
There's a grot with the pain boss?
Yeah. A grot orderly assistant, and he's got the sort of lower half replaced with the wheel as well.
I completely breezed over. Yeah, the mono wheel grot.
Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot about that guy. Okay, so yeah, there are 2 unicycle grots now, or mono wheel. I think some people have called it.
Yeah.
So,
but that's another thing that's really cool to see, because that's something we've sort of lost really in the miniatures range, which is that orcs are just nuts in terms of the bionics they use. So like in the really old rule books, they have like pogo legs, for example, or fuel injector legs for running really, really fast, or stilt legs, or all sorts of weird shit that you just don't see reflected at all in the range, which I think is really sad, because that's a massive part of their character, that they're just constantly tinkering with themselves. That's one of the things that I really love about orcs for building. Like, their tech is just so rough, it's really easy to scratch build.
yeah, that's a good point. That's why I tell people to sculpt things like Tyranids, because when you're sculpting organics, it's a little more forgiving. You can get something not exactly rectilinear, and it's skin, who cares? And I could see that with orcs.
As long as it's got a big engine on the back and a big gun on the front, and it works for orcs.
And like, if you're cutting out plastic card and the plastic card isn't exactly straight, who cares? Put some like nicks and divots in it, and put some like more cuts in it, and look, it's orky.
I sort of think of orcs as entry-level scratch building, and then my other love, which is NGribbly stuff, is entry-level sculpting.
Yes, Nurgle is another great one, because they're a mess. So you can you can experiment with textures and stuff like that to like fill up areas, and they are very forgiving. Don't ever start sculpting Space Marines. You'll hate yourself. A, because Space Marines are boring, and B, because it's going to be really hard to get them right.
Yeah, I mean, why would you even start?
I don't know. So I guess this is a bomb squig that he's riding. Looks like it's got a bunch of bombs and TNT and stuff strapped to it. And I like that you mentioned the like classic orc weirdness, because we're about to get to that. But before we get to that, I feel like we talked a little bit about I always get his names wrong. Zodgrod?
Yeah. Snagga.
Snagga, yeah. So this guy he was one of my favorite, I think he was probably my favorite 40k model that they showed off. And he's just so cool. You touched on how he's emaciated. I like that he's got hair, because like people that I know in the community,
and you can see that it's just been stapled on.
See, some people commented if they wondered if those were teeth, like hair squig teeth, like the hair squig was like biting into him.
Yeah, see, I wondered that too, but then
they said on the
video, it's the beard.
Yeah.
For me, that makes me think it's just stapled on. Like, if you look at both corners, there's one, and then there's one bottom of his lip too. I think it's just stapled. I would be very happy if it was a hair squig. I don't think that's what this is.
So when they did the preview video, they mentioned that the hair was stapled on, and I think they did call it a hair squig.
Yeah.
Which would be another cool like return to like weird, wacky orc stuff. Because a lot of people I know some people I know who love orcs, they're like, where are the hair squigs? I want the hair squigs back. Yeah, so I love that about him. And like, even like his bionic leg, like it looks like thin and kind of like really like looks like it's got some wicked talons on it, and
it's all spindly.
His claw, like his I don't know what that's called, but the claw on the end of his pole is just amazing.
Yeah. It's just really nice to see an alternate body shape on orcs as well. That's something that's something I've been exploring for a while. Like, I've got my big fat war boss, and I've done a skinny weird boy as well. It's nice to see them exploring that a bit more.
Yeah, this guy would make a great weird boy, because he's so.
He would make a fantastic weird boy. That was my first thought. He even already has a staff. You just have to replace the head on it, and you've got a weird boy.
With the hair. Oh man.
Yeah, he'd be fantastic. Replace his pistol with an open hand. Yeah.
You should do a double kit with him with weird boy bits. And the other thing is, he's another callback to a classic orc. So this is the same
which
character,
I
right?
also love. Yeah, it's the same character.
Zodgrod
Zodgrod Snagga.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from the classic Freebooters Codex, as far as I remember.
Right. He does look freebootery to me. And again, you got that same kind of claw pole thing. You got the same like hair and beard. They even painted it blue. Oh, what has he got on his pole? It looks like he's got like a boar on his pole.
It's a little sculpt of himself riding a boar.
Oh, cool.
Like you see, it's got the blue beard and he's got the claw and all that stuff.
Oh, the claw. Oh, okay. I thought those were horns, but you're right. That's really cute. So I guess they removed the boar theme, and then also this guy looks like he's got an eye patch, but I guess it was just kind of like a nod to this character.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same character by name, but they have really updated him. So like he's got the bionic leg now as well.
Yeah, and I'm not mad because he is so cool.
I love the update. I'm really happy with it. I've been planning a conversion of Zodgrod for ages anyway, so I'm really happy that they released an official model.
And I think that in the video they made it clear that none of these things are limited edition, so they'll all be coming out. Like you get them in the box first, but then you can get them later. And this might be the first orc, possibly the first orc model I ever buy. I don't know that I've ever bought an orc. It's weird because like I got into 40K in second edition, but before I got into 40K, I had a friend who got like random models, like 40K models, and they were like, hey, let's paint these together. And the first 40K model I ever painted, I forgot this, was an orc. It was like
no way,
old second edition. I don't know if it was mega armor or something. I think he had like this weird like arm cannon. Oh, I think I lost you. Are you still there? Oh, coming back.
There we go. I'm back in.
So I can't see your video yet, but it might be coming. Oh, here we go.
Dropped out for a sec. Sorry.
That's okay. Glad you're back.
Yeah, you were saying it was the first orc you painted.
I forgot that. I think the first orc I ever tried, the first model I ever tried painting was an orc, 40K orc. So I don't know. Maybe I've been destined to get on orcs for a long time. I guess one other thing they showed at the Warhammer Fest this week was the war boss in mega armor, and I didn't realize how significant this is. People have told me, like, because I don't follow orcs.
Oh, that's a big thing.
Yeah, they've had this in their codex possibly for a while, but the only model was Ghazghkull or something, and
it's weirder than that. So he has been in the codex for as long as I've been in the hobby. The mega armored war boss was in the codex when I first bought it, which was like the 3rd edition codex, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But the only mega armored war boss available was Ghazghkull, so everyone had to convert him, right?
There was no other war boss.
No. There were unarmored ones, but there was no mega armored one. You had to buy Ghazghkull and then convert him,
or convert a mega knob,
when he was still a metal model was a nightmare.
Yeah.
But then it got even stranger because in the last Orc Codex, when they brought the buggies out and revamped a lot of the range, they also dropped loads of character models and character entries, including the mega armored war boss. So you couldn't take it at all.
Okay, so they realized they didn't have a model. They're like, yeah, we're just gonna take this away.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the war boss; it was quite a lot of the characters. So they dropped the Big Mac with a custom force field, which a lot of people were upset about because he was pivotal in quite a lot of tournament lists. So they actually brought him back in, I think it was chapter approved.
Mm-hmm.
But they also dropped mega armored war bosses on bikes, Painboys in mega armor, Painboys on bikes, Big Macs on bikes. Like the majority of character options just got pruned straight out of the codex.
Wow. So that seems like if we don't have a model for it, we're not going to have it in the codex.
Yeah, pretty much. Ignoring the fact that orcs are possibly the most conversion-friendly army. So if you don't have a model for it, it doesn't matter.
Just loot someone else's model and make your own.
Every release is an orc release with the right attitude.
Yeah. This is actually how the Kroot guys are getting these days. Everything that comes out, friggin' Ironbeak is like,
it's like a bird on it.
Model.
Yeah.
That's Kroot model. That's Kroot model. I'm like, okay. Like to the point now where like Blitz Mechanica is sending me messages, and on Saturday of Warhammer Fest, they showed this like Sigmar winged angel character thing. Wasn't really moved by it, but Blitz Mechanicus like, that's an orc base. That's a Kroot base. I'm gonna steal that from my swamp Kroot. I'm like, okay, sure. But yeah, orcs were the original, the OG. I can loot that. That's an orc release.
That's always been my favorite thing to do, like picking an obscure sculpt and making it into an orc, like the Weirboy that I made out of that vampire, or the fat warboss that I made out of the Jellipox infected.
Yeah,
it's just so much more fun to me.
So this dude is a big deal. The mega boss in
huge. It's really exciting.
Cool. I like his little grot gunner. I think that's a really good solution, so that you don't have to have him like having like a giant axe in one hand and a giant gun in another. I'm all about like pintle, like shoulder mounted weapons and stuff, so that they don't have to clutter up model hands.
Yeah, I'm just a big fan of multiple models on one base. In my own builds, I often do this. I have miniatures with little henchmen or pets or things that they have alongside them, because it turns your character model into a little diorama, which I love.
Which is great. Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about Zodgrod, and then what I wanted to talk about was, so we talked about how these models that we've seen already, they're already showing like positive progress in the orc line, like getting maybe away from that weird physiology, smaller heads, better musculature, like different body shapes are very useful. So I wanted to kind of talk about, we've touched on it a bit, but some of this feels like it's going back to classic orc, like classic orc kind of fluff, or classic orc approach to the models. And I just wanted to have you talk about what you love about orcs in general.
Oh man.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up, you sent me some pictures to feature, and there's one particularly characterful one that I wanted to pull up here, and this might inspire you as to where to start when it comes to talking about what you love about orcs. So yeah. Oh, hold on. What have I done? So you seen this one?
Still waiting for it to come up.
Okay.
Sorry, one sec.
That's fine. When it comes up, you go for it.
I will. But oh yeah. Yeah. The old Paul Bonner artwork.
Paul Bonner is a Games Workshop artist that I didn't recognize well enough, and I've come to appreciate him recently. Like he did like a really weird Tyranid art piece that we talked about on the stream one time. So this is Paul Bonner?
Oh yeah, the hive ship.
Let's not talk about it.
Disgusting but fantastic.
Yes.
I don't know that he's done much for Games Workshop for a while. The most recent piece of his I can think of was he did a beautiful painting of an orc big mech that appeared in one of the Imperial Armor books. But I think what I love about his orcs is just that they are so characterful, and the mixture of costumes and styles of dress and the weaponry and just everything about them, I guess, speaks to what I really love about orcs, which is that of all the factions in 40k, they're probably the only ones having a good time. Like, they're happy to be there.
Yeah.
You know? Like, they're just loving it. That's what I really like about them, that they're simultaneously really silly and really scary.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite, I know you don't really like Black Library novels, but I have a few that I like, and one of my favorites is one called Evil Sun Rising, which is about orcs invading a planet from the perspective of the orcs.
Yes.
And what I love about it is that it's describing them doing stuff that from a human's perspective would just be horrifying. Like there's a point when the crew cut a not princeps, I don't know the term for the commander of a knight, but they basically cut a knight pilot out with a blowtorch and then roast him and eat him, but they just describe it as like this big party, like they're just having this barbecue.
Yeah. Oh god.
And it's horrifying. Like that's what I love about them, I guess, that they're monsters and they're terrifying and they're horrible, but as far as they're concerned, they're just having a good time.
So you sent through a couple of examples of kind of like classic orc artwork from 40k.
Oh yeah.
Was there any of these that you particularly wanted to touch on, or is it just capturing the
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 spirit
feel?
that I love about them. I think they're all equally brilliant, to be honest. I can have a quick look and see if I have a favorite. But um, ooh, here we go. So it'll be this one. Either this one or the
The
next one
Mech
along, I
Town
think,
or
which
the
is with the
King? What was the other
the
one?
Mech Town with all
Yep.
the winches and the pulleys. This one.
Yeah. So
I love
talk to us
this
about
one.
Mech Town.
So this to me just speaks to the mad chaos that orcs are, which I absolutely love. um,
Is this another
and
Paul Bonner?
these are both Paul Bonners, yeah.
Wow, they are so cool. Like I love this little guy down here, like planning out something.
Yeah, that they're talking about their drawings and they're figuring out what to do next, and you can see like it's all very Wallace and Gromit, which I love because stop motion's another love of mine. But
Yeah. Oh, and then we got like grots up in a bucket at the top, and like there's one grot
yeah,
like yelling at the other grots, and there's one like
yeah,
grabbing
and they've
like
got stacks
drawings.
of plans and papers, and they're all like you can see on the drawing where it's been flipped over, they're designing a stomper, which is what's being built in the background.
Oh yeah, okay. Wow.
um, so yeah, I think that's my favorite thing about them. They've just got this fun approach to intergalactic war, which is refreshing, given
I
how grim
agree.
dark 40k usually is.
Yeah, and then we've got the what is this one? Kingpin? Something? King Pimp Bork? That was another one of those you sent through with the what's going on here? It looks like there's like a grot like cellar in the front, and then there's like possibly someone fanning this orc
Oh
boss.
yeah.
Oh,
So
there's like a
that's just
little
the name of
grot
the
like
JPEG.
giving him
But
something.
yeah. So this is just a generic orc settlement as far as I can tell. But again, very much old school.
Yep.
So this it kind of throws back to like the old Gorka Morka artwork and their old style of building, style of architecture. Like the way the
Mhm.
orcs used to be was they had these very sort of blocky like sandstone buildings and
Yep.
forts. And it was all very Warhammer fantasy with guns, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, I
And
remember
then,
those, and
if
they
you
had
look in
those
the
classic
background,
scenery. They'd show them in the codex, like the
yeah,
orc settlements with the
yeah, like the cardboard cutouts. It's almost like an
yeah.
Arabian fort. um, yeah, I love that style. And then if you look in the background, you can actually see there's an orc riding like a mutie or a
Oh yeah.
horse. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You see it.
Yeah. By the
I
gate
just love how
there.
exuberant it is and how much is going on, I suppose.
Nice. And then you sent one of is it freebooters? I always think when I see orc pirates, I think they're freebooters, but
Yeah, I mean they pretty much are. That is the ones swinging on the rope, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so the freebooters are a bit of an odd case. They're not a clan of themselves. They are orcs that dropped out of their clan and just rove around basically doing what they want.
Mhm.
But yeah, they are all pirates in space. And they just take the silliness that orcs have and turn it up to 11.
So I feel like I'm not expecting Games Workshop to go back to quite that silly, but I'm glad they're bringing in
No.
more silly. There was another one that you sent through of an orc with kind of like a machine gun.
Yeah.
It's pretty low resolution, but he looks like he might be a goth. I see like a bull on his back banner or on a banner
Yeah,
behind him.
probably. Yeah, I can't see them going back to this level of silliness, and to be honest, that's fine because I like what I like about them is that they're silly within a serious setting,
Yes.
I suppose, and it would be hard to take them seriously as the threat that they are
Yeah.
if they were if they were that ridiculous, I guess. Placed alongside the other factions in 40k as they are now.
Yeah. Like when I look at these, I very much see kind of like Brian Froud labyrinth goblins, like
Yes,
made large. And I
yes,
know that you and
exactly.
I are both big fans of that.
Oh, huge.
And I think that worked in the 90s, but like when I think of orcs now, I think of them more as like brutal, like
Yeah.
brutal objects that smash their way through. Um, and they've almost developed their own kind of aesthetic. They've evolved from the like Fraudian goblins
Yeah,
into
they've moved away from this.
Like scrap. Like I think when I try to describe orcs, I think of like scrap. I think of like big engines, stuff like that. And it's kind of cool how they've evolved into their own thing that way.
Yeah.
Like more Mad Max, less crazy space goblins.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that we've been through kind of like what you love about orcs, maybe it's a good time to kind of get into like what you love about the hobby and how you got into that stuff. And I gotta say that when you described all that, it really made me believe that you must have come into the hobby in 2nd edition, because it seems like you really love the 2nd edition vibe to orcs, but that's not the case. So when did you get into the Warhammer 40k hobby?
When I went to secondary school, so it will have been 2005, late 2005, early 2006.
Yeah. 2005, 2006.
So
okay. 3rd, 4th
So,
edition? 5th?
Third or fourth, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Certainly not during the sort of golden age of silliness, as it were. But but yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I'm going for. The silliness in the face of extreme horror is how I think of it, with how horrible the 40k universe is, and just everything is miserable.
Yeah. And how did you get introduced to 40k? Like, what was your first inroad to it?
A friend who collected Space Marines.
Always, they're like, "Hey, I collect Space Marines.
Every
I need something
time
to shoot."
Yeah, basically.
And
Yeah,
what was
my
your
first army was Space Marines. My first army was Space. Well, no, my first model I ever bought was the classic Hive Tyrant.
Oh.
But then my first army was Space Marines, just because it was easy and they were super forgiving for new gamers.
Yeah. What do you mean by classic? Do you mean 2nd edition, 3rd edition, the one with the Geiger alien head, or?
Yeah, that one.
Okay, so 3rd edition Hive Tyrant, the walking Hive Tyrant.
Yeah, with the when the studio scheme was Kraken, the Bone and Red.
Yes, that's awesome. That's clearly why we're such good friends, because your
Yeah,
first model was a Tyrant. My first model was also that I bought was a Tyrant.
Yeah.
But 2nd edition, and then alongside some Termagants. Cool. So you started off with Space Marines, and like what chapter did you start off with?
It was homebrew. Even then I was allergic to to following instructions.
I like that, allergic to following instructions.
It's my entire approach to the hobby, to be honest. If you're telling me to do it that way, then I will do it this way because it's mine.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a homebrew chapter, and I did do a lot of converting, but I have to say I was more enthusiastic than competent. So looking
again,
at
an excellent way to describe it, and I would encourage everyone to be more enthusiastic than competent. Like that.
And looking at some of my old minis, it's just horrifying.
That's how you learn to sculpt. You need to be more enthusiastic than you are competent.
Yeah, absolutely. Eyes bigger than your stomach, and you'll figure it out as you go along.
Catch up.
Yeah. So yeah, my first army was a homebrew Space Marine chapter.
What were they called?
The Knights of the Blazing Sun, which when I was 11, I thought sounded super cool.
Of course.
Not so much now.
And like, did they have like a special thing? Like, did they all have blazing suns on? Were they bright orange?
Well, that was their symbol. Yeah, I mean, they were. It was. I have thought about buying a Space Marine and painting it to the best of my ability in that old school scheme, because that might be quite good fun. But they were sort of metallic armor, with red shoulder pads and red helmets.
Mm-hmm.
And I painted like a sun on their left shoulder pad just by like stippling red and then yellow.
Yeah.
So they were primitive as hell.
I feel like they might have been a precursor to orcs. Like, you were just doing evil suns and just didn't know it yet.
Yeah, clearly. And then my second army was a Kroot army.
Really?
This is before the Tau Empire was Tau Empire, and certainly before they had an apostrophe, and so they were just called Tau and Kroot at that point.
Yep.
And I built a fully Kroot army.
Wow, so you were OG full Kroot, like before Iron Beak and all that action.
Yeah, back in when will this have been? 2007.
Yep.
I think, was when I did that.
And did
Uh,
you were they just like you just used carnivores and ox and crude hounds, or did you like represent?
I had a converted hammerhead.
Yep.
Um, this was very. It was around this time or a little bit after that I discovered Moloch's work, if you remember
Yes,
his
renegade
crew.
crude.
So I started my pure crew army before I found his work, and then I found his work, and it just blew everything I did out of the water. But
Well,
I did convert a hammerhead.
that's cool. And was it a similar kind of thing where it was like Kroot piloting a Tau hammerhead, or did they like do
Yeah,
like
yeah, sort of looted.
nice? Well, you guys were working on the same kind of idea at the same time. That's wicked.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so then
His was obviously vastly better than mine, but yes.
whatever. As we said, enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is what's important. So,
And a contrarian attitude.
and
I
then
refuse to do it the way that you tell me to.
yeah, the contrarian. I think the contrarian attitude is where nice like count as forces and stuff like that come from. I've got a bit
completely.
of that contrarian in me. In that like when I think about an army, for example, my Gene Stealer cult. I don't like the idea that Gene Stealer cult is like a flash in the pan and the Tyranids come and eat it. I'm like, no, I want a Gene Stealer cult that like lasts, that like
Yeah.
escapes the.
This
the
is a
notice
cult of
completely.
hundreds or thousands of years, and they're fully established. Yeah,
Yeah, and I like
definitely.
my coven is like trying to represent all of the Dark Eldar list through a coven, so coming up with weird reasons that a coven would make something like a Dark Eldar warrior or something like that.
Yeah, I remember. Like you've got the venom with the hooks that the racks
Yeah,
attach onto on the back. I love that conversion.
but I feel like that's a little bit contrarian in that I'm like, okay, you give me a venom, and I could put like they give you a little crew for the venom that is like
Yeah,
racks or coven or whatever. I'm like, no, it's not enough. Like you gotta push it a little further. And then so from
yeah. I don't. I think it's not just contrarianism though, is it? It's also having your own idea and then using what Games Workshop gives you in terms of rules and models as a springboard.
yeah, yeah, I love that.
Like
And then
taking a profile and then breaking it down into right. So it's a vehicle, but really all it is, it's a stat block with this number of wounds and this armor save. So I will make it as a monster that's roughly this big.
yes, I
Um,
love that.
that's always been my approach.
And you can do that even with just like rank and file troopers. Like you're like, I want something bigger and tougher. Well, then find something in the list that has a higher toughness or higher wounds,
Yeah,
and then just make it big and beefy in another way.
yeah,
Um,
completely.
where did you go after Kroot?
God, I can't remember. I think Necrons for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I did. Yeah, that was my first proper gaming force. I went to a couple of tournaments for my Necrons army.
Hold on, I've got one of your Necron models here. I just gotta pull it up.
Oh yeah, the Walker. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So you did this really funky converted Necron Walker. What did you convert it from?
It's a it's a Triox Stalker sort of smushed together with a Ghost Arc, as far as I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
I think. Um, because like Necrons have these sort of Canoptech constructs. I wanted to make
Yes.
something that was really not humanoid, not like anything else in the Necron line.
Yeah.
Like very clearly something completely artificial. So I just spent a few evenings messing around with this build and seeing what I could come up with. Um,
I think it's really cool.
I
I
really
love
wish
it.
I'd finished it. I enjoyed building it.
Oh, you didn't finish it? It looks pretty close to done to me.
Yeah, I mean that was about a third of the way painted. I gave it to a friend who plays Necrons
Yeah.
and who would get much more use out of it than I would because I'd finish it and then it would just sit on my shelf forever.
And
So
was this in the era that you were going to tournaments, or that was pre this?
that was pre this.
Okay.
I made that 2017,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
three and a bit years ago. Yeah, so I had my Necron sort of tournament army, and then I just sort of stopped gaming for a while.
Yeah.
I was just converting and painting a lot. Uh, and then I switched over to Warhammer Fantasy. I had a massive Night Goblin army. That was what I was
Oh,
doing for a long time.
cool. Was that when they? Was that before they re-released them? Like before the the
It
respite?
was when they were still Night Goblins. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
before Age of Sigmar happened.
Okay. Yeah.
Back when it was just Warhammer Fantasy.
So you took a
Um,
break from gaming, but you it sounds like you were still hobbying like consistently throughout.
Yeah, well, it's been my creative outlet for a very long time. So, like, even now, I don't really play ever.
Mhm.
Um, but the conversion side and the community side as well, like getting to know you as well, for example, um, has always been what I've enjoyed about the hobby. So, gaming, I can sort of take or leave it. I just
Yeah.
want the creative outlet.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. That I think the creativity and the community sides are definitely what I'm into as well. But you kind of mentioned that when you do a conversion, you have a mind to like what it could represent in a codex. I think that's
Yeah,
how I approach it. That I don't worry about playing, but if I had to play, I have an idea for what this thing could be.
yeah.
And like people ask me sometimes, they're like, "Oh, what do you do for your rules for your conversions? Like, do you like do homebrew rules?" I'm like, I don't really care. And if I'm making like a giant dactylus, I guess you could use it as an exocrine because we have like an exocrine stat. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so you went to Necrons, and then from Necrons you went Fantasy Battle. When did you come back to
Fantasy, yeah.
40K?
20, yeah, 2017, around the time I built that Necron Walker. So
Okay.
I did that Necron. I did some Tyranid builds that I really need to finish. um, 3 years on. Yeah. So this was before I really did. This was before I really did orcs. I started a small Tyranid force.
Yeah.
This is when I really got into blogging. So I discovered I used to check your blog every other day.
Oh God, I do
And
not
I
post nearly
started.
enough for that to be required.
No, I know, but it was good reading. And this is when I was really getting into properly getting into modeling and converting and sculpting.
Nice.
So like I was using your sculpting tutorials, for example.
Great.
Um, picked up the hand cream trick, which is so helpful.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is not my trick. That is Hydra's trick. He just gifted it to
mm,
me, and then I just loudmouthed it to the rest of the world.
you just shared it with everyone.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so you
yeah,
had a
so I
bit of
sort of
Tyranids.
a little bit of Tyranids, and then that was when I got into orcs. I think
Nice. I've pulled
about
up
3 years ago.
an orc picture here, which I love. I think you described this as your fat war boss.
My fat war boss, yeah.
And like you said, you
He,
like having different things on the bases. We got a cute little squig with a hat coming along with him.
yeah, he's got pirate hat, of
Yeah.
course. Um, yeah, he's still one of my favorite builds that I've ever done. I think he's certainly one of the most successful.
He's still one of my favorite models you've ever done.
Yeah.
And in terms of
Um,
models, what was this based on?
it was one of the Jellipox infected that they did with Rogue Trader.
Really?
Um,
Oh, the hand.
yeah.
I see the hand. That's the weird one with the hair, I think.
Uh, yeah. Oh, I changed him a lot. I'm
Yeah.
seeing if I can find the official image of him. Here we
Because
go.
the foot looks like a storm fiend.
It is a Storm Fiend. Yes,
Okay.
the feet are Storm Fiends.
Yeah.
So I'll just send you an image of the model I converted it from. But
Okay.
he's I don't know if you remember I was talking about earlier. I really 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 like to find the least promising model possible, and then see if I can turn it into something cool.
Yeah.
Because it's a challenge for me, and it means that once I get it done, again, this is the contrarian coming in. Once I
Yeah.
get it done, no one else will have anything remotely similar because no one else will be stupid enough to try it.
Yeah.
um,
So this is the guy you converted him from, the butcher
yeah,
kind of dude. Actually, where
yeah.
is he? But like I see maybe some of that musculature is hidden under all that armor.
Yeah.
And the hand is definitely close, but it looks like there's a lot of other stuff that went in there.
His left arm is completely scratch built. I sculpted over the belly. His legs are sculpted with Storm Fiend feet.
Yeah.
Um, and the rest of it is just a mishmash of orc components and pieces that I had in my bits box.
Nice.
But
And then you
yeah,
sent
sculpting has been my weakest area for a long time, so it's something that I'm really, really working on fixing. So like with him, I sculpted his belly and like his chins, his fat,
yeah.
and his legs as well, his trousers.
So what you consider weak, I don't know that other people would consider weak. But I understand that it might not be at the point where you want it to be, but I'd say you're still pretty strong on that. You sent through another. Is this an orc or is this a chaos? No, it's an orc. It's got a banner pole. It's the one with
Oh, with
the claw and
the
the.
He's an orc slaver.
Oh.
So yeah, I sent him through because he is relevant to what they're releasing now with the beast snaggers.
Mm-hmm.
um, because referring back to what I said earlier about I really wish orcs had more monsters and creatures in 40k. I wanted to do like a slaver army, so like with trolls counting as dreadnoughts and squig riders counting as bikers, and that guy was going to be my war boss, like a slaver who has just become the leader of his own warband, which is why he's got that claw.
Mm-hmm.
Like the classic, like the grot slaver, I guess.
Yes.
So I may revisit. I think I actually will revisit that model and finally finish him
Perfect.
now that beasties are coming back.
And you know what? I don't know. I guess did that squig naturally have that weird gob thing on it?
No, I added that. That's from a biker.
You know what that looks like?
That's
exactly those squig hogs. You converted a squig hog before the squig hogs.
Oh
were
yeah,
even
that's
a thing.
true. I did.
That's like you just put a big hoggy body on that. It's the exact same thing as a squig hog. Well, I guess like orcs, they have those big metal like lower jaw things, but you nailed it, buddy.
The Iron Goblin. Yeah, it's yeah, that is the fairing from the front of a war bike.
And then he's got little blinders on, the squig.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, well, I figure they bite their handlers and all the time. I figured blinders, blinkers made sense.
You should totally put those on your squig hogs if you get any squig hogs.
Oh, I totally will.
Nice.
Like that's one of the things I really love doing. I like considering how a character would actually use his equipment and how it would actually work. So, like,
yeah,
for example, on the claw,
yes,
it's got a little finger guard, and I made buttons and I scratch built a trigger and all that stuff. So it looks like it could possibly work.
Perfect.
And I try and do that with all my miniatures. I try and consider how things would actually be used. So, like, if I go back to my fat war boss, he's a good example of in the rules, a war boss has a claw and a shooter, but I wanted him to have an open hand, so yes. I strapped it to his back, so it's on the model for if anyone wants to complain, but I still get my sort of vision.
Oh, so it's in like a it's slung across his back somewhere?
Yeah, it's on a sling.
Oh, nice. I like that. Yeah, and like the Mega Armor War boss we saw where you got the Grot Gunner on the shoulder so that you can have like, he doesn't have an open hand, but you can have more flexibility around that.
Yeah.
Perfect. So these are your orcs. We talked about your Necrons. We talked about your Tyranids. We don't have any pictures of your Tyranids because they're long lost. There was some
long lost. I got locked out of that Instagram account.
Yeah, but they will come back, right? Because I've been bothering you for so long.
Oh, you've been pestering me for 3 years, man.
It's so fucking beautiful. So, you did like one of the very first things I ever remember seeing of yours on that old Instagram account that you got locked out of was a really cool modernization of the big giant head zoanthrope. Like, not talking about the giant head zoanthrope we have now that are very long, but talking about
like the classic one with like the shield-shaped head and the two legs and the warrior torso. Yeah.
Yeah, so you were doing an amazing version of that, and I was like, hey, when are you going to finish that? Hey, when are you going to finish that? Hey, when are you going to finish that? And I pestered you enough that you're like, you know what, I'll just finish it and give it to you. I'm like, yes! Yes! So one day, that will see the light of day.
One day,
and then I will
eventually.
have to paint it, which will be a problem because I don't do much painting, but I will do it because I love that thing so fucking much, and I love the original zoanthrope that you based it on. So yeah, it's too bad you don't have pictures of your Tyranid stuff because your Tyranid stuff was really neat. I still hold out hope that one day you might get back to Tyranids. Maybe it'll take a new Tyranid release, but
yeah, I do intend to. It's on the long list of projects that I intend to revisit.
So you mentioned Nurgle. I don't know if I have.
So I've been doing that more recently, I guess. But
yeah. Because you've done some Necrons recently. I'm just flipping through your Instagram quickly.
Yeah.
You got a really cool scheme for your Necrons. That's like a teal and
the teal and the white.
Yeah, and like some yellow, like orange in there. You did a friggin' cool. Is it a Nightbringer based on Catacross?
Yes. He was fun.
Oh man, he's friggin' cool.
Yeah, the Necrons are solely because I can paint them super quickly, and I really wanted a gaming force that I can actually have a go with. So like one of the warriors is maybe 10 minutes worth of painting.
Oh, really? So, amazing.
Yeah, they're very, very, very quick. Like that was the whole point of that scheme. The characters take a bit longer, but because of course they do. But
Yep.
they are very quick.
One day I want to do Necrons, and I tell myself that it's going to be an easy scheme, but I'm worried it won't be. But yeah, you got some really cool Necrons. I can't get enough of that Nightbringer. That you called on the whole, like, the new design elements that they have, where the new Catan, whatever, they have
Yeah, the
like
sort of control units.
yeah, the what do you call it? The canoptic parasite, keeping him in
Yeah.
check on his back. Oh, it looks so good. And then you use like Catacross, and you use like a, is that his name? I
Yeah.
can't remember how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Calicross from the Nighthaunts, not Nighthaunts. The Ossiarch, whatever they're
Yeah,
called.
but
Soul
and like
Reapers, and sculpted
very,
his hood as well, which was
yeah,
fun.
yeah, you got the hood on there, and I feel like it's uh it's not a simple conversion, but it's a efficient conversion. That you used a lot of Catacross, you added a few bits to it, but it looks completely like perfect for Necrons and totally different. I love it.
Yeah, it's mostly Catacross. I made the scythe obviously, and I sculpted
Yeah,
the hood
yeah.
because I wanted to fit with the more sort of Reaperish aesthetic, and then I just added a couple of select Necron techie bits, I suppose. But yeah, it was a minimal amount of work.
Yeah. Now I'm just kind of like browsing your Instagram, but you talked earlier about Painboy that you converted, because we were talking about orcs and their body shape,
Oh
and
yeah,
how like the new
yeah,
body
yeah,
shape
yeah.
on that new character is like a little more emaciated. And you said you used
Mm.
one of
A
the,
weird boy.
yeah, you did a weird boy out of one of the vampire
That
models.
guy, the floating one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh man, really cool.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
just
he
trying
was
to
fun.
like find like my favorite bits, and then I gotta find that teleporting squig, but it might take me a bit.
El Squigo. Yeah, he's a bit of a way down.
But there's all kind, like, yeah, if you're not following GrimNGribbly on Instagram, you really need to, because you can just scroll down through his page and there's all kinds of goodness. I just found a new orc war boss here with some giant ass claw hands based on a
Oh yeah.
dreadnought. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, he was a commission I made him for a guy who is no longer on Instagram, I don't think, but he was a
Oh,
he
too
was
bad.
actually a really fun build. I was sad to get rid of
Good.
that one.
You got some boats. You got some like stompas or whatever the heck they're called. You got whatever the hell these things are. You took like pink horrors and like creepily sculpted over
Oh
their
yes.
faces.
Yeah, the Horror Brothers. Yeah, they were
Oh,
fun.
based on squigs. Oh man, they're really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, squigs with just green stuff smoothed over the eyes. They were
Oh,
a fun
so
conversion to
creepy.
do.
Oh, and then we talked about your orcs, but you also mentioned that you have a force of goblin space trolls.
Yes.
So you did a conversion of, I think it was Gazgul into
Yeah.
a troll war boss.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that one a bit?
Probably the most terrifying conversion I've ever done because it involved cutting a massive hole in a really expensive model, but
Oh, come on.
um,
You can handle it.
wasn't
Amazing.
sure at the time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I wanted to do like the space trolls, and I wanted to do them as a project for a really long time. And I started off by converting all the characters. So he's my Gazgul. I've done a mech, I've done a weird boy, and I've done a pain boy. Um, and the trolls will be my next project, I suppose, if I need a break from everything else that I'm doing.
One of the really awesome things I think about the way you work is that if someone is like new to converting in the hobby, or new to sculpting, or new to like kit bashing and stuff like that, you post. Some people don't really post their work in progress. They just post their completed stuff. But you do a really good job of posting all of your progress, and like even on that the Gazgul stand-in that we were just talking about, you can see
Mm,
the final model painted. You posted this actually about a year ago, May 22nd, 2020.
yeah,
But you can go back and see all the different phases you went through with it. Like you had one where like the Makari character was like sitting on his shoulder with the banner pole.
yeah,
And then there was another one where you just have him posing with like a with his staff, and you're trying to like block it out, figure it out.
yeah.
So yeah, and then just like another one where you can see like the how you did cut up that really expensive model and just get all the pieces together.
Um, yeah, for me, I think that's just what I find interesting. I like seeing how people work and seeing what's going through their heads as they're figuring out builds, especially like a really involved or complicated build like this one that required a lot of sculpting work and a lot of restructuring of a really big model.
Yeah.
And just trying to make it completely my own.
Yeah,
so
I love that kind of stuff, but I always worry that people don't love seeing it. So I foolishly
I
used to
do
post
too.
a lot more of my progress, and I don't post as much these days. Oh, is this your mech? Troll mech, I think. Or what is this? Yeah, troll mech from the guy from Shadespire. I think you used one of the Shadespire models or something. Warhammer Underworlds.
Yeah. The Mollog.
Yeah, he's really cool. Oh, and I think it's also got your weird boy.
So I was trying to
your weird boy. Is that the kind of dancing troll dude?
That's the one.
Oh, okay.
Again, very, very minor conversion. That's the Blood Bowl troll with some armor pieces added and a staff that I scratch built.
Wait, you scratch built the staff, but isn't the head of the staff from a model? The like orc glyph on it?
The head is from... what's it from? I think it's from the classic metal war banner.
Okay, yeah. It looks very familiar.
I think.
And I just remembered your Painboy. Oh, man. Man, you got so much good stuff. I can't keep up.
The Grotsnick troll.
Oh, man,
yeah,
I love
I was really pleased with him. He was fun.
Especially like how you painted his flesh, like the pink and green kind of mottled worked very, very well.
Yeah, the trolls are fun to paint. I really do need to revisit them.
I'm glad to hear you're going back to them because, damn.
well, I will be, especially now that like modern orcs seem to be leaning back more towards the beast herders and the monsters, because then there's more of a framework to support characters like this, which is going to be really cool. I did love building that Painboy, especially. He's another one of my favorite conversions, because he's another one of the Jellypox infected models that I just wasn't a huge fan of.
Yeah, I didn't notice.
You know the one with the tentacle arm? That's where his body comes from.
I hate that model so much. I used part of it to make my Crudox.
Yeah.
And it's like the butt of my Crudox, which is a statement about how bad that model is.
It looks like ass.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, oh man, I forgot about this guy too. Like your crazy, like Nurgle death horseman of the apocalypse dude.
Oh, the centaur type guy. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Was that for you?
I'm
Was that
just
a commission?
A bit of a hobby butterfly. No, that was for me. That was just an idea I got into my head and decided to throw it together over the space of about an evening or two.
Amazing.
Which is usually how my builds come together. It's usually just a dumb idea, and then I have a rummage in my bits box and see what I've got, and see if I can build it.
Oh, man. It's so cool. Did you wind up changing it? Oh yeah, you added like a back banner and like
from the rider to the more sort of centaur like. Yeah, that's another thing that you've got on me about before. Like I'm continually changing things. It's never.
I was actually about to comment on it because I'm like, you'll get it to a point where I'm like, yes, you nailed it, and then you're like, no, I'm gonna mess around with it a little more. I'm gonna change it up. I'm like, no, it was perfect. It was so perfect. Like you had the dude with the hand. He just had like the empty hand, the previous version of the centaur. And I was like, oh man, yeah, I love it. He's got like that scythe. He's got like the limp mutant hand. And you're like, no, I'm going to put a staff in his hand too. I'm like, oh, come on, buddy. You had it.
Yeah, I'm a very indecisive converter.
I'd say you're very iterative. Like you're constantly iterating. Oh man, I could just go, okay, I need to stop because I could just go through your stuff all day. Like there, who's this guy? He is the one you sent to Quarter Paint.
With the gun. Yeah. He was fun. He was a fun build.
What is that orc model that has that head with all the like optics on it?
What's he called again?
Snickrot. Oh man, I love that model.
I always get confused between the two. It's Snickrot, the commando character.
Yeah, he's a really cool
he was a fun build. He's one of my favorite orcs that I've done.
So what models did you use in this one? Like what are the legs? Are they an orc?
The plastic ogre tyrant that came out relatively recently. I say relatively recently. It was nearly 2 years ago. But Yeah, last year just doesn't feel like it happened.
No.
He's mostly that plastic ogre, and then his torso is the third Jellypox infected. I've used
I
all
see the
three in
green plastic
various
in there.
models.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that is. And then the gun is from a flash kit, and I extended the barrel and added that sort of flared like trumpet bit to
Yes.
look more like an old
Like a
elephant gun.
blunderbuss or
Yeah.
oh, it's so cool. Okay. Um, long story short, if you're not following GrimNGribbly on Instagram, you need to. And you should just go back. Oh, I guess the one thing that I wanted to touch on, I was like, let's touch on the old stuff first. But most recently, most people probably know you for your Cordyceps cult.
Yeah, it's blown up since I've
Yeah.
started that project. That's been madly popular.
I feel like there's a weird thing on Instagram where people don't remember anything. Like I just showed it. Like I don't remember all these amazing models you made, and I feel like the people will remember the most recent thing you're doing. So to a lot of people, probably they know you as the mushroom guy, the Cordyceps cult.
Yeah,
guy.
they probably don't know that I started off really doing orcs in a big way.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to cover that here. But since people are most familiar with Cordyceps, we saved that for last. But do you want to just say a quick word about that?
Yeah, I mean they've been such a fun project. I'm really loving them, and the reception they've had has just been mad. But they're actually an idea that I've had for a really, really, really long time. Not this one specifically, but I've always wanted to do. I wanted to do a sort of cult army. I wanted to do like the mutants and the nasties and like people from the Underhive because, I guess same as with my monsters and the orcs. I always really like following the road less traveled, I suppose. So in terms of cults, I wanted to do something that's not a chaos cult.
Yep.
Like something completely other. So I made my first Cordyceps. I had never played the Last of Us games. Everyone assumes I got the idea from the Last of Us. I didn't. I promise. I've wanted to do Cordyceps zombies for ages because I feel like it's an underexploited theme.
Well, and it's also the case that Last of Us did not invent that idea. That Cordyceps,
no, they just took the idea and ran with it. Yeah, which is what I love about it, and it's fantastic because it means I've got a big library of reference.
In case people are not familiar with what Cordyceps is.
Yeah, I mean, I mention it in posts occasionally, but I always get questions like, "Did you invent this?" I didn't invent this. Cordyceps is a real fungus. There are hundreds of different species, and they all infect different species of invertebrate, not just insects, because they affect spiders and caterpillars as well. But basically, what they do is they affect the host, and to be blunt, zombify them. So I wanted to do a 40k cult army based on that idea. And they're actually proxied as Genestealer cult because that was the easiest way I could think of to represent sort of baseline human cultists and then gradually more mutated monsters.
Yes.
Because, yeah, Genestealer cults are probably the closest rule set we have to sort of regular baseline humans.
Yes.
Specifically with scope
like
to include mutations as well. Yeah, otherwise I'd just have gone Imperial Guard.
That's something I hadn't. Oh man, you just like threw me down a rabbit hole. That when we talk about like count as armies and stuff like that, the Genestealer cult would be the perfect army list to create weird mutant humans.
Yeah,
which
completely.
sounds stupid because that's what they are. But I'm just so tied up in the Tyrannid side of things that I'm like, oh yeah, okay, these are Tyrannids. But you're right that if you wanted to have a mutated force for Imperial Guard or something like that, just use Genestealer cult.
Well, and because they use civilian equipment as well, like they're the closest 40k has to models of civilians.
Yes.
Because they just use mining equipment. So they're a fantastic baseline rule set to make kind of whatever you want. Like if you wanted to do Chaos Lost and Damned, that would also work. The other reason I went for them is because of
these brilliant ideas. That's so smart. Jesus, we have a Lost and Damned codex.
The other reason I went for them is the like the hive mind because I really wanted some sort of proxy for the mycelial network, which is basically that all the mushrooms in a field are linked through the mycelium, which is their roots.
Yes.
Like the mushroom that you see is just the fruiting body of the fungus. Like the network is enormous, so I wanted some sort of proxy for that communication. Perfect. And the hive mind made perfect sense for that.
Yeah, I love it, and like just the things that you demonstrate with it. Like you did a really helpful tutorial on how to create mushrooms, how to sculpt mushrooms. You've got a bunch of kind of like found materials in there, like using a lot of beads very usefully.
And and mustard seeds.
Mustard seeds, okay, because there's these little black balls, and I've had people say that they come out of filters, like water filters or something. You can cut them open.
Right. So no, that's not quite what they are. The ones that people are talking about are charcoal beads from water filters.
Yes.
That's not what these are. These are hemispherical beads that I just get from eBay, and I have them in loads and loads of different sizes, from 1 mil up to about, I think, 12 mil is the biggest one I have.
Yeah.
And I use them in all sorts of ways. They're fantastic for rivets and bolts, but here I use them as just sort of weird growths and ways of bulking out the sort of mutations and tumors that these guys have.
God, so cool.
And I do use found objects as well, like the mustard seeds. That's what those yellow beads are. Because
right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, because they're organic and they're not perfectly spherical, so they look a lot more natural.
And like when
so I can use them as filler.
When you're using something like that, like an organic seed, do you have to like seal it?
Well, then I'm super gluing over the top anyway, but it's a dried product, so
yeah.
It should be fine.
Wow. Oh yeah. So if someone out there wants to learn how to sculpt mushrooms, GrimNGribbly's got an excellent tutorial on his Instagram.
I get so many questions about it even now that I've written, I think, 3 tutorials.
Well,
so
that's the thing. Like, I think we all assume that anyone who looks at our profile has an exhaustive view of our profile, but
yeah,
we don't. They don't really. So
yeah, no, I realize that it's pinned to my highlights now. So if you want to see the tutorial, it's in the highlights bar.
Yeah, if you want, I just pulled it up here. But yeah, it's right now it's the 3rd bubble on Grim's highlights on his profile. So there's one called tutorials, and then it'll link you to the various posts that show you how to make these various things.
Oh, and so I love this, but the bubble next to that one, the GrimShroom's bubble, that's been one of my favorite things about this project. Loads of people have now made cults of their own.
Yeah,
which I love.
wanted to ask you about that. I forgot about that.
That's been the craziest thing about this, that people have liked this idea enough that they've decided to make their own. I know of at least 20 different people who have taken this idea and made their own guys. Which is just crazy.
Also
it's
very
really cool.
Appropriate, because the Cordyceps
absolutely they're spreading.
Yeah, so if you want to track the other shroom cults, you can find them right here. This is awesome. Yeah, there's tons
yeah,
of
I always get people to tag me so that I can see them and see their interpretations of them.
Man, spreading like mushrooms.
Exactly.
Cool. And then, okay, so we've kind of like covered what you're working on. So looking forward, what kind of project are you looking forward to next? Like, if you had to pick a hobby project you're most excited about at this point.
See, I don't know. I don't have much hobby time at the minute because I've actually just moved and started a new job.
Okay.
But yeah, so I don't have a hobby space in my current flat, which is making me sad.
Oh,
but
no.
I'd love to get back to the Shroom Cult and do some more of those. I've started work on a small Death Guard force, like the top 3 posts that you can see, the 2 sorcerers that I've made.
Yeah, I just pulled up an amazing one.
Were a lot of fun.
Nice.
So I'm just starting on that because they're small and quick to paint. So that guy that you've just pulled up, for example, was a fairly quick conversion. I just wanted to do some simple sculpting work and have something finished at the end.
Yeah. Is this the one with the head from the plague?
Yeah.
Bear?
Yeah, with the single eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the hood.
Man, that's an awesome head. Oh yeah,
the
hood
cool.
makes it. Oh man, damn, you're good. This is cool. Oh, in terms of like not having hobby space, have you? I feel like you must have figured this out by this point, but like having like a very small hobby kit, like a little case that just has like the minimum required.
I do have a small hobby kit, but my issue at the minute is that my work is model making as well, so all of my hobby tools are currently at work.
I fucked up. I was supposed to mention that. Hold on. That was part
no worries.
I've got too many tabs open. Here we go. So yeah, this is one of the other things I really wanted to touch on was your work. Let's talk about your work. So I've just pulled up a picture of a very ugly looking bird that is probably very familiar to some people and completely unfamiliar to others. So what is this we're looking at here? The Scroll Keeper.
He is the Scroll Keeper. He was my baby for when I was working on Dark Crystal. I worked as a puppet wrangler, which basically involves maintaining the puppets, fixing the puppets, keeping the performers happy, whilst filming on set. I did also work with another Skeksis character. I can't remember which. I think it might have been the Emperor, but I really can't remember.
Yeah.
Basically, I spent a little while working on Dark Crystal Age of Resistance during filming, and it was just the best experience.
And
it was
it's
good.
another reason that I'm completely envious of your talent and your life and how awesome you are. Because as I
I
did
think the highlight of my entire career has been drinking whiskey with Brian Froud at the rap party.
Oh, you lucky bastard! I I did a grim dark film club thing, and in that I commented that Jim Henson and Jim Henson Studios is responsible for my imagination, just
Mm.
because of things like Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, Storyteller. Certainly, I'm huge on Storyteller, which people don't talk about that much. And I can't believe that you got to work on the Skeksis. Like, I'm sad that I'm sad that Dark Crystal,
I'm
the
sad
new
it got
series
cancelled, but
got
I'm glad
canceled.
it
I'm
got the
glad it
showing it did.
happened and that you were there for it, and that they actually used practical puppets and not CG.
It was terrifying. Like if you walked around the corner and the Emperor walked, he was walking along.
Yeah,
Like they're big.
yeah.
Like the Skeksis with the performers inside them were easily meter and a half, 2 meters tall, depending on whether they were wearing their armor or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they were heavy. Like it took two of us to lift the suits and then
Wow.
put them on the poor performer.
Well, how would the performer move around in them then? Were they like jacked? Were they all like crazy muscle builders?
I mean, not really. So each Skeksis had at least two performers. They had a sort of general body performer for the big shots,
Yeah.
and then they also had actually a lot of the original performers from the original film as well. Because they
Wow.
had like multiple copies of each one. So they had a simple puppet and they had an animatronic one, and they had all physical effects. It was just awesome.
Oh man, that's so cool. So yeah, that touches on, you said that it's hard to hobby at home because all your hobby materials are at work, and as work you make models for films, for music videos, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, films, TV series, music videos, adverts. At the minute, I'm working on a new TV series. I'm not allowed to tell you what it is or who it's for, but I'm
Oh,
working on a stop motion TV series.
I can't wait.
So all of my model making related stuff is at work. So I couldn't hobby even if I wanted to at the minute.
Uh, Can't I like send
um,
you some shit? Like I could like I'll bust off some epoxy sculpt. I'll send you like a couple of tools, so you can have something at home. We need your art, man.
yeah, I know, I
I
miss
mean,
it.
for your mental health, because creative expression is a mental health thing, and it's helped me through
Yeah,
the
of
pandemic.
course.
I mean, I'm concerned about that too, but I'm also I want to get some more of those ideas out of that brain of yours.
You just want me making shit.
I
Yeah,
do.
that's
I
fair.
want everyone making shit all the time because you guys all come up with such good ideas that it just they like you said, like you showed the Cordyceps cult. Had you not chased down that idea, there wouldn't be 20 other like armies making the same thing.
Yeah. Oh,
Or
it's an
similar thing.
idea that I had years and years and years ago. I'm not really sure why I finally decided to do it now. I think I was just in need of a project during a lockdown, and it
Yeah.
seemed like a good idea.
I'm glad you did. Like
Yeah,
the
me too.
Kroot Tyranid Hunter thing was something that'd been rolling around in my head for literally a decade. I'm glad I
Mm,
finally got to do it because it was just gnawing at my brain. And I'm glad
yeah.
that all these other people wanted to do like full Kroot forces. Like it's this big thing now.
Yeah, definitely. I need to do more crew. I know I'm doing one for you, and I did one for Ironbeak as well. I did that crew assassin,
Yes,
which was a lot of fun. The
I had him up.
Calexis
Awesome. Yeah.
Calexis crew.
Uh, yeah. I can't wait to see what you do with some Kroot boys. Now that I know that you started with Kroot, or
Mm.
kind of. I'm just gonna see if I can pull up the Ironbeak thing.
It was my first army that I sort of actually put thought into. Like Space Marines, I did just because Space Marines are the default. The first army I chose to do because I wanted to do it was Kroot.
That you're OG Kroot, man. That's awesome. Restless Game was late. Yeah. Oh, okay. Awesome. So I think that we've covered off most of the stuff that I wanted to cover off in terms of like how you got into the hobby and like where you're at with the hobby
Hmm.
currently. I'm glad that we also touched on your work as a model maker. I also want to plug your other profile on Instagram in case people are not aware of that, which is Vague Monkey.
Yeah, I have multiple profiles.
Dude, we all do. Come on.
Just to keep things separate.
Are you even
Yeah,
on
I know.
Instagram if you don't have at least 3 profiles? Come on. So yeah, the Vague Monkey stuff is that. So that's more like, vintage.
That's
What do we call these now? Super cool toys. I don't know.
designer toys, I think
Designer
is
toys.
the normal term for them. But it's just my personal non-hobby sculpture work, I guess.
Yep.
Um, because I wanted to have things that I've made completely from scratch and that are just mine. So, and it's also just where I post up stuff that I just make for myself, like those texture tiles that I've made recently. And I'm also learning to digital model at the minute. That's my current
I saw that.
thing because I'm traveling around a lot, so it will be helpful if I can make things on the move.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, Vague Monkey is kind of me as an artist, which yeah, I'm still kind of embarrassed to call myself an artist, but I guess that's what this profile is.
Vague Monkey. I am a proud
Yeah.
owner. You can buy these yourself to get
Yes.
cool texture
Yes.
tiles.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I
It lives right
remember.
here. Yeah, that's the crazy thing. You're like an actual artist. This is something that Brother Pink yells at me about. He's like, "We are artists. Like what we do for our quote unquote hobby, that's art." Oh man, yeah. So definitely check out Vague Monkey as well as GrimNGribbly on Instagram, and you can track his new work doing like 3D
Yeah.
sculpting,
My
3D design.
alternative alter ego.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
and there's a big gap as well because I've spent like the last 6 months making stuff for a music video that I am not allowed to post because it won't be out for a while.
okay. For the final thing for our little chat, thank you for putting up with all the madness till this point. I came up with this questionnaire that I wanted to put to artists who do a lot of work with Xenos, and because I'm fancy, I'm calling this the Xenos Proust Questionnaire because Proust apparently had a questionnaire he asked people. This is nowhere near as highbrow as that, but yeah, just some questions to get to your feelings about the Xenos armies in 40k and like where they're at and where they could be. So it is 11 questions, and there are no wrong answers, so don't worry. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Question the first. What is your earliest memory of Xenos?
My very earliest will have been when I got that Hive Tyrant. Yeah, my first 40k model. The early Kraken Tyranids.
Nice. Okay. And the second question, these are probably should be the same question, is what is the first Xenos model that you actually own? Because you might have a memory of Xenos that comes before the model, but it's probably that Hive Tyrant.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, there's a bit of crossover. I remember scrolling through the Games Workshop website, and I remember looking at the rest of the range, like the old Hive Guard that had like the sort of helmets and the weird sort of fan shields. I remember seeing those on the website, but the first model I actually got was the Hive Tyrant.
Nice. What do you think is the most overrepresented Xenos race in terms of people's collections, Instagram, whatever, hobby?
Probably Orks, to be honest.
Really?
I certainly know of the most Orc collectors, but that may just be because those are the creators that I follow. I'm not really sure. Generally, I would say Orcs or possibly Necrons, I guess, at the minute, just because they're in the starter set and it's very easy to collect them now, and they're just such a quick army to paint too. So if you feel like dipping into 40k, then Necrons is probably an easy way to go because, like I said with my scheme, you can paint them so quickly.
Yep.
And then they're really forgiving to play with as well. So as far as entry level Xenos go, probably Necrons.
Okay. The Xenos race that has most fertile ground for a Space Marine style deep dive, as in the Space Marine line, the current Space Marine line that has 40,000 models in it. Like if you could pick one Xenos race that would have that depth of it, like Games Workshop gave them that depth of a line, it's never going to happen. But if you did, what would it be?
I want to say Tau, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because I think they've got so much potential in terms of the auxiliaries and the minor alien races that will just never ever be represented as a faction, but through Tau they could at least be there as, you know, a standalone kit. It would be really nice to see more obscure races explored in that way. Like we've got the Vespid, for example. We've got one box set which is extremely dated.
Yes.
But I would absolutely love to see well, like we talked about, underrepresented Xenos
Yeah.
represented in at least some minor way. And I think the faction most suited to that is probably Tau, because you could just have, a single auxiliary box of Hrud or Demiurge
Yep.
or whatever. Um,
I expected you to say orcs, and I would have thought that like that's a good point because there's all these different clans and all these different like weirdness, but that's a really good observation with Tau. Especially because Tau are supposed to be in the early fluff. I don't know if it's still like that. They're supposed to be like hyper evolving, and like they're always experimenting with new weapons, new armor, stuff like that. And there was a bit of that where I think you could give like your commander experimental weapons, but I don't know if that's still around.
I don't think it's really still a thing. It was in the 5th edition codex, I think, that you could do that. Like, you could take more experimental weapons, but they cost more and they used up more suit hard points, so you couldn't take much in the way of other equipment.
Yeah.
But in terms of representing obscure Xenos races, I think Tau have the most scope, just because they already are like a collective, an empire of lots and lots and lots of different species. They always have been in the fluff. It's just never really been shown in their miniatures. All you see is the Tau, the crew, and one Vespid unit.
What is an unforgivable Xenos sin?
Oh, man. Not just with Xenos, I think, but converting in general.
Yeah.
Is mixing aesthetics or design languages, which is a very arty thing to whinge about, but it always bothers me. So we've sort of talked about this before, how orcs have a very sort of scrappy aesthetic.
Yep.
It always bothers me when miniatures that have parts with very, very clearly different design languages are mixed together. So you see it all the time with orcs mixing the Iron Jaws? And they've got that armor that looks like it's been carved out of stone, right? And then you're mixing it along with regular orc pieces. And the 40k aesthetic of orcs is simple shapes, right? No compound curves. You've got flat panels welded together and a simple semicircular shoulder pad. And then the Iron Jaws, it's all like it's whittled out of stone. And then smushing the two together just makes no sense to me. I don't know. I just find it really glaring. It might be because I work as a model maker.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to do a cross-range conversion, especially, you really have to be aware of design language and making it consistent, I suppose. That may bother other people less. I don't know. I just always find that really glaring, and it's something I'm really careful to keep consistent.
I get it. Doing like Tyranids and Dark Eldar, like you talk about like the kinds of curves.
Yeah, like so, Dark Eldar always have concave curves, and then Craftworld Eldar always have convex.
When you use something that's more imperial or more like kind of rectilinear and you put it in a Dark Eldar force, I'm like, I don't know. So what is the best non-Xenos kit for making Xenos models?
That's difficult because I don't really use many non-Xenos kits. The kit I have been using the most recently, I guess if I'm going with my Cordyceps cult, probably Cordor. But again, that's kind of a cop-out answer. Ooh, I want to say Bloodletters, actually.
Yeah. That I said there's no right answer. That might be the right answer. Bloodletters are amazing for making aliens. I agree.
I think because they have a sort of regular, consistent physiology, whereas all the other demons, like the plague bearers, are very obviously plague bearers, and the demonettes are a whole nother thing, and then horrors are just like a mess of arms, but bloodletters have a consistent anatomy, so they are such a fantastic base. You just need to swap out the hands and head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my choice.
Oh god, they're such good models. If they ever like replace them with shitty demonettes style models, I'm gonna be real sad. I should buy like 8 boxes of them and just keep them over here just in case.
Hoard them like people were doing with toilet paper last year.
Yeah, I should hoard. I want to hoard bloodletters the way that people hoard toilet paper. Space Marine chapter that can live.
Oh god, none of them.
You got to pick one. The one that you think might be kind of interesting. It doesn't have to be like a Games Workshop top banner Space Marine chapter. It can be any one that like they've written about.
I want to say Carcharodons.
Good choice.
Space Shocks.
I love those.
Yeah, the sort of Maori Berserker Marines, because they've just got such a cool art style. And their background is fantastic. I love the idea of the nomad fleet. If I had to pick a chapter I actually found interesting, it would be the Cocaridons.
I can feel that. I might pick the black dragons, the ones that are supposed to have like weird.
The bone spikes. Yeah.
Good choice. Okay, Xenos project that got away.
Besides the Zone Thrope I started 3 years ago.
One we haven't talked about yet. What about like something like the Cordyceps? An idea that you've always wanted to explore for Xenos, but you haven't.
I've always wanted to do something with what are they called? The Hrud. Like Space Skaven, I guess.
Nice.
Which would be really good fun. But the descriptions of them in the background are just so conflicting because they really rewrote them to make them. Well, they're another good example of how fantasy was just ported straight into 40k, and the Hrud were just Space Skaven, right?
Yeah.
And then they rewrote them to be these sort of robed, time-manipulating, shadow-being things that would be very much harder to model because they don't have defined bodies. So they would have been really good fun. They're an example of a race that would work really well as a Tau auxiliary, I guess. Yeah. Like you get a single squad and then you build them into your regular force.
Nice.
That would be quite good fun.
That's a good one. Greatest misperception of Xenos by Imperial players.
See, that's another difficult one.
Like, if someone who only collects Space Marines, what do you think is their misperception of Xenos?
I guess the Orks are kind of seen as the easy faction. Always annoys me. Like they're always very much seen as the low effort. If you want to kit bash and not really have to put any effort in, then you play Orks. I think it's very easy to do a very simple kit bash with Orks and it just not be anything interesting. I think it's much harder to make something unique, I guess, that hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
Which is why, like I said earlier, I deliberately go for things that are really unpromising and probably going to be really, really difficult, because then if it works, then no one else has anything similar. And
the final question, and I'm going to challenge you to mention one you haven't already mentioned. The unrealized / background Xenos race that most needs models.
That's mean. Oh man, there's a few. I'd love to see the Enslavers. That would be really interesting.
Yes. Oh look,
that would be really
I've got
cool.
one right here on my notebook. It's not... Enslavers, nice. Was there another one there that you're thinking about?
God, there's a few. I'd love to see the Enslavers. I'd love to see the what are they called? The Zwattel? I can never remember how it's spelled,
Yes.
but the guy that the sort of reptilians with the like the exo suits.
Yep.
I can never remember how it's spelled or pronounced, but they would be really interesting. They're another example of a Xenos that has appeared in lots and lots of different fluff, but they've never actually been represented in model form.
Nice.
They'd be really cool to see.
Oh, that's a good. Those are both very good choices.
Until recently, I would have said Zotes, but now they've got a model again.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would have had hope that we could see Enslavers and like Zoatl or whatever through Blackstone Fortress, but apparently we're not doing that anymore. So maybe Tau, as you observed.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, Tau just make the most sense to me because they're the easiest to dip into and make just a one-off, rather than having to make a whole range.
Oh man. Okay, that thus concludes the Xenos Proust Questionnaire. You've done an excellent job being the first person to ever take that questionnaire, and that was some really good answers in there.
Happy to be a guinea pig.
Okay, Alistair, that was all that I wanted to really touch on this time. So thank you so much for making the time to chat with me today, to chat Orks.
No worries. It's been really good to talk finally.
Yeah. And I would once again encourage anyone listening, watching this, to go and give Alistair a follow on Instagram, both his GrimNGribbly account as well as his Vague Monkey account. And a lot of good stuff on there. Yeah, we'll look forward to chatting with you again on the podcast sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, be absolutely up for that.